Good afternoon. This is Global Dossier, Power, Truth, and Politics. Today is Easter Sunday. I am here with my friend Salim Daher. We're going to try to get you some opinions of news that happened during the week that we think it will help with the Venezuelan twist to see how are the developments of this week and the coming week and how they will play. And I would like to welcome my friend Salim so he can give us his opening.
As always, it's a pleasure to be here, my good friend. Always a pleasure to be talking to you about politics and all the worldly developments that have happened throughout this week. And hopefully everyone who's watching your channel and mine is enjoying these takes that we're giving them from two gentlemen who are Venezuelan immigrants in the United States with a point of view that might resonate or not resonate with you. And that being said, we have an amazing list of news that happened today and throughout this week and that we're happy to discuss with you right now.
So one of the items that I think is important on the discussion is that after the election of Mr. Donald Trump, after the election of Mrs. Meloni, after the election of Mr. Milei, after the election of Mr. Noboa in Ecuador, and the twist that the conservatives are getting in Europe, this Easter week, this Holy Week, is being great for the Christians all over the world. We've seen that the mass participation is above the roof. We see the pictures and the videos coming from France that 6 months ago we thought it was lost to the Muslims. And now we see the French Christians going out to pray and pray at the Lourdes sanctuaries and in different parts of France. It's been amazing. But the other place where we see the Catholic faith going all to the roof is in Ireland, where the globalist government is trying to hit the people to the corner, and the Irelanders say, no way, we are Christians, we're Catholics, this Jesus is the King, and we're going to pray for that. And the other place where we thought it was lost is in England, because they have elected so many mayors that are Muslims, and they have really cornered the Christian faith and even the Jewish. And the same thing happened. And in the United States, the participation of the Christian faith all over the country is being amazing. I went out to different churches yesterday on Good Friday and today, and you see all the places of worship full of people showing their faith. And that is a great message, because 8 months ago we thought that woke religion had taken over the society, and since the change came with Mr. Trump, who, by the way, has given several speeches this week about the Christian faith and about the events of the Holy Week, and it's been amazing. And I think that's a very important for the first subject that we're going to talk today.
Yes, and I just want to say to all of the people who are watching us today that may you have a blessed Easter Sunday. He has risen. Christ took up all of the world's sins and died for your salvation. And if you're a Christian, you know how important this date is today. And I sincerely hope you have a blessed, healthy, and amazing day with your loved ones and your family. That being said, my friend is on the spot. We are seeing record numbers of people throughout the world being baptized into Christianity, even in the United States, even in Europe, where we thought the woke virus had all but destroyed the remnants of this very foundation of Western civilization, because we all know Christianity is a large pillar of what shaped our society, what shaped our nation, what shaped our laws and our judicial system, what shaped the values and the morals of this country and many others. In fact, it is this country's very motto, "In God we trust." It is derived from the principle that there is one true and powerful Almighty God watching over us. And that comes from the Christian faith. So I am indeed extremely happy to see massive demonstrations in favor of Christianity, whether you're an Orthodox, whether you're a Baptist, whether you're a Protestant, Lutheran, Mormon, and of course Catholic. We welcome you and embrace you with open arms, and we're incredibly happy to seeing you profess and celebrate your religion. And that being said, what do we think of Vice President J.D. Vance visiting the Pope and this apparent positive exchange that they had within the Vatican's headquarters, and apparently a very happy J.D. Vance and a very happy Pope Benedict?
Well, the thing is that this week there were the nuclear talks in Rome between the U.S. mission and the Iranian mission. They gathered together at the embassy of Oman with the Italian foreign minister and the Omani foreign minister, and they brokered the negotiations on separate rooms for 4 hours with Mr. Witkoff, who had met with the Israeli strategic minister a day before in Paris. But the interesting thing is that even though those negotiations were yesterday in Rome, Vice President Vance went to the Good Friday Mass at the St. Peter's Basilica, but he was received in the Vatican by the Venezuelan cardinal, who is the number 3 in the Vatican. Okay, that's Mr. Peña Parra. And then yesterday, Saturday, he went again to the Vatican and was received by, on the same Friday, he was received by Pietro Parolin, who is the number 2 in the Vatican, but that's the political figure. He is the guy running the show. He's the COO, the Chief Operation Officer of the Vatican. And it was a long talk, and everybody thought that Pope Francis wouldn't receive him. And they tried to talk about, the critics that the Vatican has made to the immigration policies of Mr. Trump. And then today we had the surprise that Vice President Vance, who is a devoted Catholic, with his family, he went and meet for, a couple of minutes with Pope Francis, but they have to receive him because, Mr. Francis sometimes goes on the red way. But he said, well, Mr. Parolin said to the boss, man, I suggest you receive this guy because he's the first runner-up in the list for being the president of the U.S. in the next 4 years, and you don't want to have a bad relation, especially when Mr. Vance is a Catholic. So Mr. Francis has to bite his tongue, receive and take a picture, and, whatever. But what I see that really bothers me is that the Vatican takes a lot of position about the immigration policies of President Trump, even though in the U.S. there's a rule of law. There are judges that are defending the position of the illegal immigrants, even though if they are good people or bad people, but here in the U.S., the rule of law is respected. But what I see is that the Vatican is not saying anything about the killing and beheading of Christians in Nigeria in this last week. And the other thing is that the Vatican is very hard on the US, but they don't say anything about the way the Catholic Church handles its business with the communist regime in China and what they do with the Christians and with the Muslim Uyghurs, even though they're Muslim, but the treatment just for being another religion and being treated like slaves is very bad. But the Vatican, to the Chinese, they don't touch them without even a clover leaf.
That's absolutely true. And my friend, I think one of the most underrepresented and most underreported tragedies of this time is the persecution of Christians all over the world, not only in Africa, not only in China, as you mentioned, but also to a certain extent in some Western nations where in the United Kingdom, a man was standing a block away from an abortion clinic and all he did was pray. All he did was stand there and pray for all the poor lost souls that would never be given a chance to live, and also the souls that were there seeking out an abortion, whether medically required or not. He was just praying for them. And this man was apparently prosecuted because of this. How is this not somehow a form of discrimination and persecution against Christians? So it's one thing for Pope Francis to be in favor of the, let's just call it the adequate and just treatment of, mind you, illegal immigrants, and some of them even being criminals. We're not saying all of them are, but they did come into this country illegally, and that constitutes a crime, even if they did not commit a crime while being here. But they should really focus on all of the dictatorships around the world, whether it's the radical jihadist groups in Syria, whether it's China, whether it's other radical groups in Africa, whether it's the persecution or the unjust persecution of Christians by the communist regime and dictatorship of Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, or the legal persecution of Christians here in the United States.
Or the disappearance of the Christians in Iran, because we have to remember that Persia was a big enclave of Christians since the apostles. Since Jesus, there's been Christians in Persia, and now they are being prosecuted just for practicing Christianity. But they don't say anything of that.
I completely agree. And I think the Vatican must really stand up to the real enemies of Christianity, which are those who persecute people of the Christian faith just because of their faith. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are not the enemies of Christianity. I can assure you that, for sure.
Yeah. Other of the things that we wanted to talk today was about the ceasefire that everybody's trying to look in the Ukrainian conflict. So this guy, Vlad the Bad Dude, said that he wanted to make a ceasefire for 30 hours in the front in Ukraine. And the Ukrainians, they agree with that. But what you read is that in many places they kept firing. But the news from Ukraine is they say that they have seen stopping in the offensive actions, and they hope that this ceasefire can stand for more days. We will see what happened to that. But to make that clear is that Mr. Marco Rubio this week gave a declaration where he says that the patience of the U.S. government is not infinite, that it must end. And they don't see that the Russians want a peace deal. They just keep getting long time without doing anything because what the communists said and this dictatorship said that they have the time on their side because Mr. Trump has only 4 years and all they want to do is stale. and don't do anything. But Mr. Rubio said this week, either you do something, because we're not going to take it forever. But the good thing is that you could say, well, if they're not going to take it forever, what happens? The U.S. withdraws from there and leaves Ukraine alone. And then it came a declaration by Mr. Trump where he says that they are signing the agreement for the rare earth mines next week. And that changes the game for Vlad the bad dude.
And look, I think one of the main things that we all want is for there to be peace, not only in Ukraine, but across the world. Peace is conducive to stability. Stability is conducive to more economic activity. More economic activity means more prosperity. And more prosperity means more money in the pockets of fathers, mothers, families that can feed their children, that can send them to school, that can incentivize the economy to keep going. No one wants a war. No one, to me, quite frankly, it seems like the Democrats are wanting this conflict to continue, all just because all they want is to antagonize Donald Trump and everything he does. But what we truly want to see is peace, and peace in Ukraine and peace in Russia would also mean not only a big win for Donald Trump, sure, but also a big win for the world. Oil prices will continue to go down. Trade routes and shipping routes won't be interrupted. And as Marco Rubio pointed out, the United States can be understanding, it can give time, it can even be lenient in many cases with Russia, but its patience is not forever and its patience is finite. And I think Russia would do very well to remember that.
Yeah. The other important thing that happened in Rome yesterday were the negotiations with the Iranian plan. But it has a kicker, is that the talks were for 4 hours, but only the Iranians gave a declaration. The declaration of the Iranians is that they will meet again on this Wednesday to talk about the technical aspects of the negotiation. But what made the Iranians, that they always want to win time, sit on the table next Wednesday? Easy. The Houthis, that are basically Iranians in Yemen, okay, but you can call it whatever you want, but the Houthis are Iranians in Yemen. They were hit with a hammer this week by all the forces of the U.S. They sent Air Force B-2s. They sent a carrier air wing for a carrier battle group in the near the Red Sea, and they were also hammered with A-10 Warhawks and all the types of bombing and everything on the port and the docking places for the oil for Yemen. And what the Americans said to the Iranians in the conversation is, you see what we did to Yemen this week? Well, we can multiply that by 1,000 in Iran if you don't sit on the table. That's why the Americans went out of the meeting without saying anything, and the only comment was from the Iranian foreign minister that said, we will meet again on Wednesday, and that's great news.
Well, I think it's the Iranians better not be stalling, because it would cost them a lot to somehow not reach an agreement with the United States. The United States is not playing, and while they are willing to negotiate, as they're currently in the process of negotiating with Oman as a mediator, or even Italy, they showed the world, and particularly Iran, that they are not playing games when it comes to their war-fighting capabilities. And the outright obliteration of Houthi presence just shows exactly this. These are not the times of Joe Biden or Barack Obama, where anybody in the world could disrespect the United States. America is back, and they're back for more, and they're back, and they're here to stay.
Yeah, they were the appeasers.
The appeasers in chief, but for what? Because all they did was appease the United States.
Yeah, they were the appeasers in chief, and all they did is pay their way to the Ukrainians to the Russians, to the Iranians. And when I say the Russians, don't get me wrong. The U.S. didn't send the money to Russia. But the thing is that they closed down all the oil businesses that Mr. Trump left during his tenure. And because of that, the price of oil went from 60 all the way to 100. And that gave Vlad, the bad dude, in excess of $300 billion. And that's when he could get the money to ignite this stupid war. So when we say appeasers in chief, and they pay it both sides, because the U.S. paid to the Iranians to defend themselves, but they allowed the price of oil to go to the roof so Putin could get the money, and they took away the sanctions from Iran and from Russia, and that's what allowed Vlad to sell oil to China and to India. And that's where it came all this business, and they allow the Iranians to get a whole bunch of money during the last 4 years because of that. They took away the sanctions. They even took away the Houthis from Yemen from the terrorist list. So that's how the appeasers in chief were. And the other thing that I think is a priority to check out this week is Brazil is not doing well, but this drunk guy of Lula has to shut his mouth because he doesn't have the cards to play against the U.S. other than having the Supreme Court to prosecute Bolsonaro for everything. But the bad news for Mr. Bolsonaro is that they have to take him to a clinic for a surgery in the intestine as part of the
recovery from his previous injury that he had when he was
from the previous attempt on his life, because he was stabbed to death. They tried to kill him when he was a candidate, and these are the
you know who they also tried to kill here in the U.S., right?
Oh yeah, Mr. Trump.
Yes, this is how the left likes to act.
Yeah. So but the thing is, we hope Mr. Bolsonaro recovers, because it will be too bad. But the guy has been 10 days of recovery after the intestine surgery. We wish him well. But Brazil, the only thing that happened now is that Bolsonaro's son, he had to flee Brazil. He couldn't stay there because they were going to do a horrible thing to him. So that's one of the leaders, and that's the way the communists play. If they don't like you, they will do whatever it takes to take you out of the run. That's what they tried to do to Mr. Trump with 4 different trials and 96 counts for 750 years in jail. That's what they wanted for him. And that's what they're looking for Mr. Bolsonaro, and that's what they're looking for Maria Corina Machado. And then we get to that in a moment.
Yes, and we certainly wish President Bolsonaro a speedy recovery, and that we also wish to see him rise again, possibly to the presidency of Brazil. Hopefully he'll recover soon and be the one to lead the charge to the safe and economic recovery of a country so rich and so great, with amazing people like Brazil. And this is how the left likes to act. I mean, they're giving no quarter to the people they know will be hard on them. We see that recently President Noboa was reelected to the presidency in Ecuador. He's been very hard on drug traffickers. He was very hard on the left. President of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, is also someone who has repeatedly destroyed the left's arguments. And now we see senators like Chris Van Hollen just being outright clowns, wanting to go crazy over a member of MS-13 who was deported because both an immigration court and an immigration appellate court ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and that he shouldn't be here. And now the Democrats want to somehow take sides with gang members who are here to destroy, to kidnap, to assassinate, to rob. anyone, really. They don't look for only Republicans or
and
only
to
Democrats.
hurt his wife.
And someone who also was a wife beater. So, I mean, what has the Democratic Party come to? I don't know. But I think it's unrecognizable, and the leaders of the past, such as John F. Kennedy, wouldn't even have dreamed of being a part of this party.
Well, the thing is that what the Democrats have shown in these last 15 days is that they're running crazy because they don't have a leader figure. And all their arguments are failed. I mean, what are the arguments of the Democrats? A bigger government?
That Donald Trump is mean. That's all they'd like to see.
Mr. Trump is mean, and they hate everything he stands for. But other than that, now they have this communist guy, Mr. Sanders, and AOC parading around the U.S. talking about the oligarchy. But what they don't say is that Sanders has in excess of $20 million in houses with just a salary for being a senator of $200,000 a year. Come on, give me a break. The same thing for AOC, but the real deal is that they're trying to look for a leader. So this guy Van Hollen went to El Salvador because he wants to take, an advantage. Because what are the leaders of the Democrats in the polls? Kamala, wow. Then Tim Walz, wow.
Those are the current.
Those are the leaders in the polls.
Okay.
And then this guy Van Hollen wants to get in, and then you have Hakeem Jeffries that wants to get in that because he went for a filibuster last week and talked crap for like 40 hours, or I don't know.
Cory Booker, I think.
Yeah, Cory Booker, sorry. Cory Booker, and what did you get from that?
Nothing. All they're doing is nothing. They're just, says they can't do anything policy-wise because they don't have the House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the White House.
But they don't have arguments.
They don't have arguments either.
They're not running on common sense.
All they're saying is orange man bad, orange bad mean, but that's not the case. I think it's rather mean that you want gang members to stay in the United States. Wouldn't you say so, my friend?
Well, that's terrible because you're promoting just crime. There's the crime agenda. And then they found a new guy to speak about getting the new leadership. That's Mr. Clooney. That's just a clown, not a Clooney. And like that, you keep seeing that, basically one of the toughest guys in the liberal community, that is Bill Maher, he went to have lunch with Mr. Trump. And then when he went to his show on HBO, said, well, I'm not going to be MAGA. What I can say is the guy is a human being. He's for real. He's more decent than I expected. And the guy can, pull a joke. He can smile. He can look you in the eye. He can listen to you. And, that's really the opinion of common sense. And that's why Mr. Trump is winning the argument all over, especially when he is able to bring to the game hardcore liberals like RFK, Robert Francis Kennedy, or you can bring Tulsi Gabbard, who said that they have the proofs that the elections were stolen and there is cheating. And you can bring like the king of liberals that was Mr. Musk, and they brought it to the conservative camp, and the guy is basically saving in excess of $4 billion a day of all the spend and waste by the big government. So Mr. Trump is winning on the issues, and that's what they really got them running like beheaded chickens.
Yes, and what I can say is that I've enjoyed Mr. Clooney's films throughout the ages, and think he's a great actor, but I differ on what he thinks ideologically and politically. I don't think that, whatever, if he wants to run, go ahead and run. We'll see what happens, but either way, I think the Democrats are incredibly wrong. They're shooting themselves in the foot, and all they should do really is try to regroup, but not even that. Their party is in such disarray that they're not trying to articulate a strategy that would actually resonate with the majority of Americans. All they're doing is criticizing, Trump's deportation operation, which was necessary. They're criticizing tariffs. I don't know why. I mean, why would you want China to keep winning? And they're criticizing what Trump is trying to do with our economy and throughout the world. So, I mean,
and the other thing is, when they presented the piece of legislation where it says that in order to vote in federal elections, you have to prove your citizenship. That's really common sense. All countries in the world, you have to prove that you are a citizen to
that's
vote.
right.
In Venezuela, that there's a communist government, in order to be in the register poll,
You need to show your
you
ID.
need to show your ID that you are a citizen. That's in Venezuela. But in the US, it's a sin if you ask for that. And they voted against that, but there was a majority. But the next real threshold is going to be when they approve the big, beautiful budget law that the president wants to pass, because the big deal is not only the tariffs, it's not only the lowering the price of gas, it's the tax cuts. That's what really promotes business. That's what really promotes job, because the kicker in the US is the creation of jobs, and that's what makes this country rich. The job creation and the capacity of the citizens to save. And that's what is lost in Europe. Europe is not winning anything. They're not producing jobs. They're just giving taxes and taxes and giving money for free to a whole bunch of immigrants. They don't want to be blended in the population. They just want to have Sharia law. And that's why Europe is going so bad. And in the US, the things are going well. And this Holy Week proved that.
That is absolutely correct. And I think it's a testament to what Donald Trump is doing as a leader. We are experiencing the resurgence of Christianity, and I'm very happy to know that that is happening. And a respect also for family, for the values that created this country, for the values that we all should protect, and that we should have never let, for any reason, fall or at least be ignored just because the woke virus was trying to impose an agenda.
And the bad news that is coming to Venezuela from this week and the next week is that there's a judge in Delaware that he is probably going to auction Citgo. And that is very bad, because this is the only asset that Venezuela has to get hard currency to pay for so many things for the new government. And what we are waiting is for Mrs. Machado and President Gonzalez to step up and say, we're here, we represent the Venezuelan interest, and these are our lawyers, and try to communicate with the US government to say, hey, Mr. Trump, we need some delay in that decision, because the new government wants to pay for all the legal debts that Venezuela has. In different ways we are going to pay, but we suggest that you don't let that this court breaks away Citgo in many parts just to try to pay to some creditors, but some of those debts were sold to Venezuelan thugs that are the owners of the debt, but they are hiding in different LLCs or different companies. But you can bet that the owners of these debt are Venezuelan communist thugs. And that it will be too bad for Venezuela. And that's why we're waiting for Mrs. Machado and President Gonzalez to step up.
Yes. So what's happening with the selling off of Citgo's assets is that these assets would likely go to very convoluted, dark, mysterious, hard to understand web of corporate clients that somehow have claims to Citgo's assets or any kind of debt that they wish to recover, and that these are mostly cronies from the government, frontmen, and that money, which should benefit the Venezuelan people, would likely never reach the Venezuelan people if this happens. And I'm sorry to say that it seems like it's going to happen.
Well, that's why we pledge Mrs. Machado and Mr. Gonzalez, they step up, because they receive a mandate by the Venezuelan people of close to 8 million votes. And there are 8 million of expatriates that are supporting their ticket. And we want them to get on the game. We want them to start going in positive and try to talk to the government of the US that Venezuela needs the help, especially because Citgo now has some money, and with that money, Mrs. Machado has to order Horacio Medina, that is the guy running PDVSA Holding, to pay Mr. Eric Prince so he can take these people out. But that's where the money is. Or if not, request to the US Treasury that there's so much money that has been confiscated to these thugs, and that's where the money is to pay Mr. Prince. Because what we have to repeat is that the Chavistas say it all over again, is that they're not going out in peace. They will go down in flames. And if they go down in flames, we have to give them fire. Or it's either that, or we get Daenerys Targaryen to bring the dragons to burn them.
Yes, and what we are trying to say is that, you know, the communist government of Venezuela has always said that they won't leave. They won't leave nicely. They won't leave badly. So whenever someone like that is, of course, entrenched in power because they have access to all the weapons, they have access to all the institutions on the country, and also an almost unlimited amount of money due to the oil revenue, the only person who can displace them is someone who has more weapons, more resources, and more money. And there's no other...
And the grit.
And the grit to do so. So in this sense, I think it's a very important time for Mrs. Maria Corina Machado to really analyze what she wants from the United States. They've recognized her as a leader. They've recognized her as someone with incredible bravery, as the one who's currently the individual mandated by the Venezuelan people to lead the government and the country. So she must do what she must do.
The mandate that she received. Well, my friends, this is all that we have for today on this Easter weekend. Christ has risen. We hope you the best. And next week, we'll see you again to see how it goes with Global Dossier, Power, Truth, and Politics.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with us at Global Dossier. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and ask us all your questions in the comment section. We truly appreciate your support, and we will be back next week with more.
And for next week, we will write down the questions that you leave from this program, and we will give you some answers next week. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Y este programa llega a nombre de nuestros distinguidos anunciantes. No deje de suscribirse a la cuenta, denle a la campanita, póngale la mano y además si puede envíe un super chat. A todos se les agradece.
Trompa al que quiera, trompa a todo el mundo, trompa a todo el mundo, trompa al que quiera.